Perhaps the most dramatic episode of the New Bible movement has been the testimony of Dr. Frank Logsdon, a former pastor of the Moody Church in Chicago in the 1950s. Logsdon influenced the development of the New American Standard Bible. He had advised his friend Dewey Lockman in pursuing the translation, but came to regret it later on. His testimony was recorded prior to his death in 1987.
We started on a feasibility report, and I encouraged him to go ahead with it. I'm afraid I'm in trouble with the Lord. I encouraged him to go ahead with it. We laid the groundwork. I wrote the format. I helped to interview some of the translators. I sat with the translators. I wrote the preface. When you see the New American Standard, they're my words. Well, when I got my copy, I never really looked at it. I just took for granted it was done as we started it, until some of my friends across the country began to learn that I had some part in it, and they started saying, what about this? What about this? What about this? You had part in it. What about this? What about this? I got to the place, I said to Ann, I'm in trouble. I can't refute these arguments. It's wrong. It's terribly wrong. It is frightfully wrong. And what am I going to do about it? Well, I went through hard search, some real soul searching for about 4 months. I don't know, I think about 4 months. And I sat down and wrote the most difficult letter of my life, I think. And I wrote to my friend Dewey, and I said, Dewey, I can no longer ignore these criticisms I'm hearing, and I can't refute them. The only thing I can do, and dear brother, I have nothing against you, and I can witness at the judgment seat of Christ and before men wherever I go that you were 100% sincere. He's not schooled in language or anything. He's just a businessman. He did the promoting. He had the money. He did the promoting. So I said, he did it conscientiously. He wanted absolutely right. He thought it was right. But nevertheless, I said, I must, under God, renounce every attachment to the New American Standard.
Logsdon believed that the translation itself had been done earnestly, but that the real problem was with the underlying Greek text that could be traced to Westcott and Hort.
Well, up till that time, I thought the Westcott and Hort was the text. You're intelligent if you believe in the Westcott and Hort. Some of the finest people in the world believe in that Greek text. The finest leaders we have today. You'd be surprised. If I told you, you wouldn't believe it. They haven't gone into it just as I hadn't gone into it, just taking for granted.
Yet Logsdon learned of the secrecy practiced by Westcott and Hort and their duplicity in replacing the received text with a text of their own.
And they had those men pledge themselves to secrecy, that they wouldn't tell anybody about the text they were using until after the book was out. Afraid, I guess, that they would be curbed, that the King of England or somebody would prevent them. Twice British royalty refused to have anything to do with the 1881 revision. But at any rate, it was deception, you see, to begin with. Their own text hadn't even been published yet, hadn't stood the scrutiny of the public. So the 1881 was built upon that.
Logsdon went on to express his confidence in the scholarship and faith of the translators behind the authorized version.
There are places where I believe the Spirit of God led the translators of the authorized version. And you read their biographies. They were mighty men of God, spent as much as 5 hours a day in prayer, and some of them knew 20-some languages. And as before modernism filled the air, and before their attention was diverted by so many other things, television and so on, they were men of God.
Perhaps most disturbing, Logsdon believed that the members of the Jesuit order had been working to undermine the received text from the beginning. He even went so far as to state that this was one of the primary reasons the company had been founded by Ignatius Loyola.
You know why one of the main reasons why the Jesuits came into being under Ignatius Loyola? Their main project was to supplant the Erasmus text, get it out of the way somehow, just undermine it. They said, in order to supplant the Erasmus text, we'll put our men in send them to Protestant seminaries, Protestant Bible schools. We'll get them in teaching positions in seminaries. We'll get them in pulpits of churches, and I'm sure there's some in pulpits of churches. To do what? The whole aim around the world is to destroy the Erasmus text, and this, of course, the Authorized Version came, the Erasmus text.